And welcome again into the television version of Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. Delighted that you've tuned in, joined with us today here on Strategies for Living. Well, we're all about helping us live healthier, happier, more peaceful lives in our bodies, in our minds, in our spirits, in our relationships here in the 21st century. We do that by engaging in important conversations with folks we like to call them life strategists. Each and every time we do Strategies for Living, and we have got a return life strategist today. He is the author of It's All Good and God is at the End, and you just can't keep a good man down. He's at it again. Artie Cesario, and we're going to deal with life's tough decisions today, Artie. Stories of love and pot and prison, oh my goodness, and forced slavery, and the unexplained, and personal growth, and courage, and more. Welcome back, Artie.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
New book, We Throw Things at You, dealing with life's zingers.
And life can throw a lot of zingers your way.
Yes,
sure.
Don't we know that, my friend? Okay, so it's been a while since we've talked. It's All Good and God is at the End. Great book. I will never forget, you were writing the book when you and I first met. And a mutual friend of ours decided we needed to meet each other. We met for lunch at a restaurant that's no longer in business, and I remember almost choking on my salad. I don't remember now all of the details. I just remember, as you were telling me, that really the stories of death and dying.
And the greatest moment of my life.
And the greatest moment of your life was when your mother-in-law died, and I choked on my salad. But what a story that turned out to be.
Yeah, it's been a good book.
And what a book this turned out to be.
Well, like I said, it's still selling well, and I just wanted to put something else out there.
Well, why did you decide to put out We Throw Things at You? Where did this book come from?
Well, I could probably write 2 or 3 other books similar to that one. And I hired a publicist for a while, and the question they kept coming back is they say, can you do other things? Can you be a general writer?
Yeah.
And I had stories in my head that I always thought that needed to be told.
Yeah.
And, and I felt like, well, maybe
You're a storyteller. You're a storyteller from way
My
back.
mother is a docent at a museum. My stepfather was a storyteller for the state of Louisiana.
So, a docent at a museum. So that's a storyteller.
Storyteller,
is it not?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, she helps people relate to the artifacts at the museum, and this is the story behind.
Yeah. Well, the thing about these are true stories, and year after year, people would say, "Man, you got to write that down. You got to tell that story."
Yeah, yeah.
And so I said, "Well, look," and also I got a little concerned about where we're going. We're having some bad race relations, so some of these stories kind of add to bringing us together a little bit too.
Yeah.
And you can't make stuff up. I can't write fiction because there's so much good truth out there.
You don't need to write fiction.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, and it's like in your first book, truth is actually stranger than fiction in many cases.
Oh yeah, and these stories, and we throw things at you the same way. You just can't make this stuff up.
All right, so dealing with life zingers, tell me just a little bit more about...
Well, how it came to the name, everybody asks, well, why'd you call it that?
Yeah.
I had a lady from Australia say, why did you call it that? Well, in this part of the world, we go to Mardi Gras parades.
Right.
And I grew up in the Bogalusa, New Orleans area.
You went to a lot of
I went to a lot of parades, and you're used to having things thrown at you. When I moved around the country, I've lived in 9 states, you go to parades, and they don't throw anything at you. And what a snooze fest that is. So like Pavlov's dog, you become conditioned for having things thrown your way.
Yeah.
So I said, well, look, we throw things at you. What life throws at you. And like for example, the beginning of like, who should we marry? I think we're all in the oyster business looking for that special pearl.
Looking for the pearl and the
Right.
opening those oysters.
Right. And that pearl is created by so much friction and so forth. And I had this love story of relatives of mine that I said, this story has to be told.
All right, so this story, you're about to tell us something that's in the book.
Yeah, it's something in the book, the love story. My grandmother's brother his wife, she was engaged to marry a physician. And she would go every day to the beach in Mandeville, Louisiana, and watch the sunset. And she was waiting to get married to this physician in New Orleans, soon to be physician. And she kept seeing this odd man out there throwing his cast net, catching bait fish. And she thought how odd he was.
Yeah.
And, just she saw him, couldn't get it out of her mind. And then she would see him at this place called Duval's, a nightclub that people would go and dance and cut up. And
Right.
he was playing the piano then. She goes, what a colorful man. Well, they never really had any conversations. And one night they left because her soon-to-be husband felt that dancing was for the lower class people. And she loved to dance. She loved music. So as luck would have it, she saw him one day. That they mustered the courage to talk. And then a circumstance came up that she had to make a decision. Should she marry this man
The
for
physician,
prestige,
yeah.
or should she marry for the guy that she really was falling in love with? And she married the fisherman. They were married 57 years,
Wow.
and it was a great marriage.
Wow.
So, life threw him a curve, but she made the right decision.
Yeah.
And one day she was coming through the Wrigley's, and they were in a storm, and she was thinking about Felix, the man that was going to be the doctor. But she saw the courage of her husband fighting the waves and having the kids, putting them below, and she said, oh, she made the right decision.
Made the right, yeah.
So-
Made the right choice after all.
So that's the love story. Another stories in there is I can relate to. This buddy of mine told me, he said, please write this story because I owe you some money. I'm not going to be able to pay you back, but when I die, you can tell my story. And
Okay.
it's not a pretty story,
Yeah.
but it's a true story.
Yeah.
He was a pot dealer.
A pot dealer.
Pot dealer back in the early 70s. I've had a lot of people talk about this. Will you reap what you sow? Well, let the reader decide for that. But this guy was a pot dealer. He used to deal pot to now people that are judges, lawyers, doctors. It was just a common occurrence, and that's the way he was working his way through college. Well, unfortunately, he got busted. And he did not think, because he never had any priors, that he would spend any time in jail.
Right.
Well, he figured wrong. He was sentenced to 3 years of hard labor at Angola. And it tells the story of him going to prison and then unfortunately getting sodomized. And then because of what happened in prison, even when he got out, he never was healthy again. And he eventually died because of that. And I'll let the reader decide, was it justice or not? Maybe a little heavy-handed, maybe.
Yeah.
But he reaped what he sowed.
Yeah.
And he ended up dying from what happened.
So, like your previous book then, Artie, your book, the new book, We Throw Things At You, is going to make us think.
Yeah, and you're going to think about, well, should he have been given such a harsh treatment or not? In each story, that's what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
You come away with it. The next story is this. The publisher said you even have to tone this story down because nobody would believe how harsh the situation was. But a young man, and what's so ironic about this is my mother received an award from a black organization called the Robert Hicks Foundation because of what my grandfather did. Back in the 40s, this young man decided he wanted to go to Chicago. There was a big movement back then. He said a lot of the black folks wanted to go to Africa. He said, screw Africa, I want to go to Chicago.
Okay.
So he gets on a bus, sits in the back of the bus in the 40s and hoping to get to
Hope
Chicago.
for the best, yeah.
But the bus breaks down, and he's very young and impatient. So this guy sees him hitchhiking and puts him in peonage, basically forced slavery. And this is a true story. In the book, I toned it down that he was only held for maybe a year. In reality, he was held almost 7 years.
Oh, my goodness.
But what happened was this man that was holding him in peonage had some friends in the police force that actually was keeping him in peonage because he would escape and they would come and get him. But come to find out, these were off-duty. They had no jurisdiction to do this. Well, what finally happened was my grandfather and a few other men found out that this young man was being held in
Being
peonage,
held against his
held
will. Right.
So they risked their lives. What they did, they made badges. Back in those days, kids had these little sheriff badges.
Oh, sure.
Well, my grandfather was a die maker, and he made up the Bureau of Taxation. And so they found out where this man was being held. And these were 4 really large white men. And they went up there, and needless to say, this little black fella wasn't liking the white folk at that time.
I wouldn't imagine.
And
no.
when he sees these 4 big old black men in black suits, white men, he said, "Oh my God, I've gone from worse to even
I mean, I've
worse
jumped from the frying pan to the fire,
fire."
yeah.
But come to find out, these men, they paid off what the man said that he owed him, and they said, "Look, we'll come after you, because you were holding this man." But more importantly, he wasn't paying. They were lying to him and saying, "You're a redneck. You're not paying taxation on this. You owe the state of Alabama a lot of money." Well, in reality, they didn't know anything. But the guy gets in the car. He's scared. He's thinking he's got to fight his way out. In a few hours, few minutes into the car ride, my grandfather says, "Tonight you'll sleep in your bed. We were sent by your family." So the hate that he had built up, he couldn't believe that these men had risked their lives to get him off.
Wow.
And like I said, the Robert Hicks Foundation gave an award to my mother in honor of what my grandfather and these other men had done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Again, you can't make
You
a story.
can't make these kind of stories up. Well, you like to write. You obviously
Keeps me off the street.
In the first book, you didn't know. Can I write? Can I do this? You've discovered that you like this stuff, huh?
Well, my publicist said that what you need to do, you don't want to be a one-trick pony and just write about death and dying and the supernatural stuff, because I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my calling in life,
yeah.
to be with the dead, because it's the closest thing to this side of heaven.
Yeah.
But I wanted to write some other stories to show that I can write about other things. But these are some stories that I think really should be told. Because when people read these, they go, "Oh, is this true?" And I go, and I can point them to the situation.
Why do you think, Artie, that we're also drawn to story? What is it about story?
Well,
What is it about story?
Jesus used fables.
Parables, yeah,
Parables,
sure.
Fables to teach lessons and everything. And I'm an instructor, so I feel that if I just tell regular stories, people won't get the message. But when you tell a true story, a third-party story, they go, "Wow." Because I've had more people come in and ask me, "Tell me more about the story." And that's what I also do. It's a short book for people with short attention spans that don't like to read a whole lot. Because I've had more people go, "Well, I want to know more. I want to know more." And I said, "Well, good. That was my intent. Is you want to know more about the story."
Are we going to get more books from
I
Artie
think.
Cesario?
Well, I've got so many stories from the first book. I could have put another book out like that.
Definitely.
Because as everybody dies, and it seems like that everybody.
Seems like everybody's got a story about death and dying.
Right.
And as you are proving for this next book, we've all got our stories.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
the story. And some stories shouldn't, Dr. Wayne Dyer died, and he said something one time. He said, "We should not die with the music still in us."
Yeah.
And
So we shouldn't die with our stories
with our
still
stories,
still in us.
stories that I think that are worthwhile, and I hope the reader feels that these stories are worthwhile.
Yeah. Now, you're on the road here. You just got off the road. You're getting this new book into booksellers that so far have not traditionally handled this type of book.
Right. You can always get on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but I want to be with the traditional bookstores, the little guys.
Yeah.
That are going to be around for a long, long time. And that's what I'm working toward.
A rabbi and a priest go into a bar. I'm going to set this up, and we're going to take a break. We'll come back. Sounds like a story to me. Artie Cesario, he is the author of a brand new book, We Throw Things at You, Dealing with Life's Zingers. We've got more with life strategist Artie Cesario today here on Strategies for Living. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I teach a wide variety of things, including film editing, directing, documentary making, lighting. I fell in love with art as a young child, and it's just always something that has stuck with me.
I love the whole process of going on set, going back into the editing room, telling a story. That's what I really love about film.
I got laid off from my job, and I figured this was the perfect opportunity to go to school to get a degree for it.
As a kid, I was really into geeky stuff. I couldn't think of anything else that I would rather do.
They really provide you with the equipment and the necessary tools in order to advance in a career, especially in communications field.
Well, one thing that really drew me to video production especially is it's just a way to reach people. And as someone who likes to communicate with other people, I felt that mass communication, especially broadcasting, was a tool that I could use.
You get some hands-on experience. They've got good stuff to work with. They really know what they're doing, and they're willing to pass it on.
When our students leave Bossier Parish Community College, they are equipped to get a job immediately, or they can move on to a 4-year degree.
Have an interest in robotics and learning how things work? Do you enjoy working with your hands or working with machines? At Bossier Parish Community College, you can prepare for the new breed of industrial careers, combining the fields of mechanical, electrical, and programmed automation. By acquiring the skills at Bossier Parish Community College, you'll earn an associate's degree in advanced manufacturing and mechatronics, and become workforce ready for today's high-demand, high-income manufacturing jobs. To learn more, call us at 318-678-6000.
And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Of course, you're watching Strategies for Living today, but you can listen to Strategies for Living. We started on the radio. We're still there. News Radio 710 Keel, Sunday mornings between 9:05 and 10, and on Thursday afternoons, healthylife.net out of Los Angeles. Today, on the television version, life strategist Artie Cesario, the author of It's All Good and God is at the End, and the new book, We Throw Things at You, out from Outskirts Press. Now, you can go to Facebook and put in We Throw Things at You and come up with your Facebook page. Go to Amazon, get the book that way. You can go to barnesandnoble.com, get the book that way. The book is dedicated to Martha White, and we're not talking the cornbread lady.
Not the cornbread lady, right.
Now this is this is absolutely a fascinating story because again, we were talking about the power of story in the last segment, and this is fascinating to me how when you throw a story, it's like throwing a rock into a pond, and how many rings can move out. Tell us about Martha White.
Well, one of my goals in writing this book is I want the world to know who Martha White is, not the cornbread lady, taking absolutely nothing away from the brave actions of Rosa Parks.
Right.
But 2 years earlier, at the Baton Rouge bus boycott, unlike Rosa Parks, Martha White decided not to give up her seat to a white person. Mm-hmm. Unlike Rosa Parks, Martha White was beaten, thrown in prison, and treated like a criminal. And just through the last few years, we've learned more and more about Rosa Parks. Was Rosa Parks motivated by the actions of
Martha White?
Martha White?
Now, Martha White lives in Baton Rouge.
Lives in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
I understand she's in a nursing home.
Right.
I tried to contact her. I've had a lot of difficulty doing that. But I did find out she was in a nursing home.
But now, what we need to understand here, and here's the ripple, Artie, because Mikhail Gorbachev, when he was asked, what motivated you? Who inspired you?
Right.
He said,
Yeah, Lech Walesa.
Lech Walesa
And then Lech Walesa
said that Martin Luther King inspired him. Martin Luther King said Rosa Parks inspired him. What you're saying is that in all likelihood, Rosa Parks was inspired by
Martha
White. And so look at the ripple there. If you stop and think about it, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Martha White, someone we haven't heard about, may have been somewhat responsible for the end of the Cold War, and the coming down of the wall, the communist wall, and the end of the USSR under Mikhail Gorbachev. It's mind-boggling when you stop and think about it.
Absolutely. When you think about the possibility that you think you're nobody, but your life touches so many other lives. Yeah. And this unsung hero, Martha White, did so much for the world, and she needs to be made known about that.
And you're doing that.
I'm trying to, yeah.
We throw things at you.
We throw things at you.
A rabbi and a priest go into a bar. I'm almost afraid. I'm almost afraid to go here, but I'm going here with you.
Another one of these stories, I'm in a bar down at Lundegrod in New Orleans, and I'm telling this story to the priest, and he's telling me stories, and we're telling stories back and forth. So that's what it is. I mean, we're changing these stories up.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the joke always is with the rabbi and the priest.
and the
But
priest,
these are
yeah.
two great stories. Is this man had a bar and a restaurant, and it became haunted, basically. Things started flying around the kitchen and so forth, and he called us and asked us, could we come out and exorcise it? Well, I'm an insurance agent. I'm not an exorcist. So I had to...
So you go get a priest, right?
Well, the priest wouldn't go, but I found a good Baptist preacher.
Okay.
He said, I deal in this supernatural kind of thing. And we went out there, and what was really funny was the cook said, I'm not afraid of all this stuff as things were flying around, but a lot of the people were quitting. A lot of the younger people were quitting. But this Baptist preacher knew exactly what to do. And the owner of the restaurant at the time said, basically, I love humanity. It's just people I don't like. And he was having a few issues with people. And he realized that maybe he just needs to be a little kinder maybe to people and a little more generous. Then it happened again. Down in New Orleans, which I said in Chalmette, but down in New Orleans, kind of a famous restaurant, which I cannot name, had a problem with a horrible, horrible smell, which my friends that are exorcists say, you know, a lot of times the exorcism is accompanied by these terrible horrible smell. It was running all his customers off. And so I told him, I was in there with a doctor friend of mine one day, and we said, look, maybe you got a spirit. And the guy goes, you're nutty as a fruitcake. Get out of my place here. I don't have spirits in here. Well, I said, I gave him my card. I said, if you ever run into a problem, let me know. I just experienced this up in North Louisiana. Yeah. Well, he calls me and said, what do you know about this? He said, because for 3 nights in a row, we've had spontaneous fires on tables. Nothing is burning.
But all of a sudden.
Yeah, and the fire department basically came out and said, we're not going to come out again until you see the chaplain. And he called me and goes, you know, I've fallen away. I'm a Jew. And he said, I'm not going to call a rabbi to come out here or talk to a chaplain. Well, this is way over my hairdo. Well, what is all this going on? And I said, I don't know. I'm an insurance agent. But I said, what we experienced was maybe that you need to be a little kinder. And he goes, I hate people because they're always coming here asking for handouts. He said, people are lazy nowadays. And I said, well, you know, you may have, had an angel come up here sometime and you shoot him off. And he goes, that's crazy. Well, I said, you're the one with the problem. Well, he calls me a Lundegrod, and we meet, and he says, these 3 sailors came up one afternoon, and they said they were really hungry. They couldn't get back on the ship. They'd spent all their money. He said, I'm not giving you money, and I'm not giving you liquor, but I will feed you. And he said, one of them had a really peculiar look about him and said, you're not going to have any more problems. But he said, God's in your life. And he said, what the hell does that mean? And I said, I'm an insurance agent. Well, you couldn't make this up. The next day, he died. On Mardi Gras Day, the guy died, the proprietor.
The proprietor of the restaurant.
Yeah. And then the priest tells me a story about why he became a priest. And that's unbelievable. He was a stockbroker, terrible stockbroker. And it was a margin call.
Well, that'll get you to religion. Yeah.
That'll get you. Well, what happened, he had a margin call, so Monday he had to square up all his accounts. Well, he didn't have the money, and he was way out of margin. So he was living in Los Angeles at the time, and the priest told me that he wasn't a priest at the time, he was a stockbroker.
Right.
But he's walking along, and this woman came up and said, can you give me some money? And he said, the hell with you, I got my own worries. And he felt so terrible because he cursed at her. And he turned around and gave her $5. And he said, she's looking at the $5 and saying, when are you going to quit this being a stockbroker? Because you're terrible at it. And being a priest like you should be. And he goes, who the hell are you? And you got to realize a priest is telling me this, so I got to believe it.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm right about this. Well, what happens, he gets home, and ironically, people that had called and left him messages saying that they had owed him money, had deposited money. He owed 24, he got 26,000. So Monday, he was able to meet the margin call.
And had a couple of thousand left over.
A couple thousand. He got a bus ticket back to Pennsylvania and entered the seminary, and now he's a priest.
Wow.
So you can't make stuff like that
You
up.
can't make stuff like that up. And, I think, folks, you already see the kind of storyteller that Artie Cesario is. The new book is full of these type of stories. We throw things at you, and it truly is dealing with life's zingers. The first book is still in print, selling, still selling
Still
great.
selling great, yeah.
It's all good, and God is at the end. And I don't know, maybe if you go on Amazon, sometimes Amazon will pair up. And,
They're doing that right now, yeah.
And so if you go on Amazon, you can maybe get a 2-for-1 special. And Artie, I don't know. I can't wait to see what the next book is going to be.
Well, I got lots of stories to tell.
I bet you do have lots of stories. And you and I even have a little something in the making. We'll let people know as that comes around, because you've continued to collect stories.
Tons of them.
Here. And so we'll see what we can do with those stories as time goes on. What's ahead for you?
Well, just like I said, marketing the book, that's one thing when you're a writer, you got to write, but then you got to market the book. A lot of writers hate the business.
Well, I know what happened on the first book. You had a lot of help because you had a lot of word of mouth. I predict that's going to happen in this next book. We throw things at you, dealing with life's zingers. Artie Cesario, thank you for coming and being a great life strategist again here on Strategies for Living.
But thank you. Like I said, I've been called worse things.
Yes, you have. Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living. Don't forget the radio version, News Radio 710 Keel, Sunday mornings 9:05 to 10 on News Radio 710 Keel, and on Thursday afternoon at noon, healthylife.net out of Los Angeles. For Artie Cesario, I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. See you next time here on Strategies for Living.